Chapter 4. Aspirations Shattered. So I got word from Dieno, but what he had to tell me was pretty whacked out. I guess I should have seen it coming, but yes, Michael was on the move. That much was expected, so I didn't mind, but the real surprise was what Obela was up to. It turns out that she left Michael's camp for an unknown destination and took her army with her. I was stunned. What? What? You kidding me? No. I'm pretty surprised, too. And get this, Michael's still completely unaware of it. I'm about to go inform him. Wow. He really is a huge idiot, isn't he? Now I'm sure of it. With everything going on, is now really the time to get lazy about that sort of thing? And before that, why is he leaking stuff out to the enemy before telling his own boss about it? I mean, Dieno being that way helps a lot and all, but you know. Now I'm feeling just a little sympathetic for Michael and Feldway. But before I get too carried away, let's ask one important question. So where are you guys gonna attack? Oh yeah, they're attacking Leon City. Like I said, Obela's a wall and I'm holding down the fort here, so all the other top brass are on the move. Pico and Garasha got taken along against their will too, so could you give them a pass if you happen to get in a fight with them? You think I can guarantee that? Like, I'll keep it in mind, but thanks. Oh, also, I got one more favor to ask. Make it quick. I'm kind of busy. I was preparing to set off for battle, in fact, but I let Dino have his say. Like, I guess I sort of miss working with Vesta and Ramirez and the gang. It's so boring up here, you know? So can you hurry up and beat Michael's ass for me? And then get me out of here. I was stunned into silence. Look, did you get hit in the head or something? You understand that's nothing you're supposed to say to the enemy, right? Wow, so mean. We're friends, aren't we? Quit being so cold like that. Oh, right. I just remembered. Did you apologize to Ramirez for me yet? I want to make up with her later. Don't give me that crap. I told you to go apologize yourself. Wait a second, Rimuru. Regardless. Yes, regardless. I'm not about to let anyone be mind-controlled against their will like this. Regardless, just do your best to get out from your mind control for me, okay? Hurry up before you shame all us other demon lords. I'll try. But I know I can depend on you and stuff. Nobody's better at leaving work to other people than me, so I hope you don't mind me taking advantage of you like that, okay? He was really starting to piss me off. I'd expect nothing else from him. Also, one more word of warning. Feldway's in league with the Insectors. I know. It sure doesn't sound like good news. Oh, it's beyond bad. Their king, Zaranus. We met for the first time, but he might be even higher up there than Guy. I won't know unless I try, but I'm sure I wouldn't win even if I went all out. He and his force are sitting out this current attack, but I don't know when they'll spring into action, so keep your guard up, okay? I didn't need that advice from him, but as intel, it was really valuable and really ominous. Hearing he outstripped Guy ratcheted up my despair to maximum. If someone that dangerous is both leading an army and resting up for now, we'll need to make sure we can respond to any move from him immediately. I thought about calling back Geld and the other guys I had stationed across the land, but opted against it. If they targeted us wherever we were short-handed, we'd be on the ropes in a hurry. We'll just have to make do with the forces we have on hand. Thanks for the warning. I'll tell everyone, and we'll stay on the lookout. Now, seriously, try a little up there, won't you? Sure. Don't get yourself killed, Rimuru. He didn't have to remind me. I was on my second life as a slime, and I wanted to enjoy it for a change. It had been nothing but war for a while. I wanted to just clean up all this mess and take it easy. I wanted to have a blast with all my friends, too, and that included Dayano, of course. You, too, I replied, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart. As soon as I finished my conversation with Dayano, I called the cabinet members still standing by in our capital of Rimuru. We assembled in the control center. Our Argo's surveillance system was showing us Leon's base of operations, but the whole area was being walloped by a blizzard, making it impossible to see anything. Considering El Dorado's usually mild climate, a blizzard like this was clearly unnatural. It was obviously Velzard's work. There was no contact from anyone on Leon's side, and we had no way of visually confirming the enemy. Communications were probably being jammed somehow, and overall, Dayano was starting to look pretty darn correct about all this. If the enemy was deploying strictly the main forces, we'd need to call up something appropriate in return. We need to send some support for the guys already there. Mess that up, though, and it could lead to enormous damage. Too many of us sent over there, and the labyrinth would be too thinly guarded, too few, and we couldn't complete the mission. We were being asked to thread an exceedingly small needle. I see. So, the enemy's on the large side, then? Benimaru's eyes lit up when I told him what Dayano had said to me. He was ready to go out there right now, and I wasn't about to stop him. I was thinking about backing up our crew over there with just me, Ranga, and Soai to start out, but it's looking like a more powerful force than we thought. We could be in danger if we hold back, so I'll want you to join us, Benimaru. Oh, that goes without saying. Who else will you take with you? Benimaru broke into a giddy smile when I announced I was bringing him. As long as he was going, I don't think he really cared who else was there. Me, perhaps? No, I killed Veldora's proposal immediately. He really needs to think a little more. Yes, it'd certainly be reassuring to have him on our side, and I'll admit that he'd be a huge asset in battle, but I can't have him so conveniently forgetting that he's the enemy's biggest target. Look, you need to realize that they're after you, okay? And in the first place, we can always revive ourselves as long as one of us is safe, so both of us fighting at the same time is the stupidest idea ever. Perhaps I was careless, yes. Leave the labyrinth defenses to me, then. Yeah, please. We're in serious trouble here, okay? Don't try anything funny, I'm begging you. So, with our problem child out of the picture, I turned towards Zegian. Now, as for you and Apito, I'd like you both to continue guarding the labyrinth. I think they got some serious threats on their side, so we can't afford to leave the place completely empty. We will be on the job, Sir Rimuru. Good hunting out there. So encouraging. We have the Dragon Lords on standby down there as well, so they should still be a pretty respectable force. Them, and Trini, Beretta, and Charis too. Charis, make sure you keep an eye on Veldora so he doesn't go out of control on us. There's no need to remind me, Sir Rimuru. I will be sure to keep a close watch on Sir Veldora, so you may go into battle with full peace of mind. I'm being watched now. Don't worry about it. No, I rather am worried. Here, just read this and relax a bit. Seeing Charis all but force a manga volume into Veldora's hands was encouraging in a much different way. Yeah, so just leave my master here to us. We have the labyrinth well defended, and we are training hard so that we won't be caught unawares next time. I very much look forward to showing you the results. Hopefully the opportunity won't present itself, but doing all this prep work just in case is reassuring to see. I nodded my approval back at Trainee. With the power you've given me, Sir Rimuru, I am stronger than ever. I have never missed a day of training with Charis, and I assure you that I have no intention of losing to Dayano next time. Right, let's trust in that. Whether he can defeat Dayano or not, Beretta and his team Couldn't be that far behind him by now. So, I'm taking Kumara with me. I decided that my deployment team would be me, Benimaru, Ranga, Kumara, and Sue. Not that I didn't have my concerns, though. I'm sorry, though, Benimaru. I made this decision without asking your opinion, but you've got a right to refuse if you want to. I know you have a couple of wives to protect, after all. Don't you? Momiji and Alvis were both well into their pregnancies. I think it turned out that the gestation periods of monsters could vary surprisingly widely. Kaede had apparently kept Momiji inside her womb for over 300 years, after all. And with the lycanthropes, well, sometimes they were embryos in the womb, sometimes they were eggs. They were eggs. They were counted as the same race. But all this diversity. Alvis was ovoviviparous, which was kind of a middle ground between the two. The embryos developed inside of eggs that remained in the mom's body until pretty much the moment they were ready to hatch. Alvis was obliged to stay in her animal transformation during the whole pregnancy, too. I guess retaining human form required some amount of physical strain, but this, too, varied from person to person. The science of monster ecology was still in its infancy, really, and I couldn't devote much time to it. Hopefully we'll see some enterprising biologists or naturists delve into the topic in the near future. For now, I'll leave it at that. The important thing right now was how Benimaru felt about heading to battle with 2 pregnant wives to think about. What's more important to him? His work or himself? It's the kind of question nobody likes to answer. And I'm, single, so it's never one I've had to tackle before. Not that I mind or anything. I'm not jealous, I swear. Besides, I was the kind of office frack who had to pull an all-nighter on my own birthday, so having a girlfriend would have just sucked for both of us. From an emotional standpoint, of course, my wife would matter more, but from a practical one, maybe my job would. I can't make a living without money, so honestly I might have to prioritize work that way. But what's the point of working if you can't protect your family? That question's going to come up at times, too. It's hard. It'd be nice if we all worked at companies that understood that sort of thing, but in my nation, at least I want to pursue ways to get as close to that ideal as possible. I don't want Benimaru to face marital trouble this early on, so I really wanted to respect his will on this. But Benimaru just laughed off my concern. There is no need to worry. I'll do everything I can to protect those I love. I always wanted to have a successor to take on my will in case something happened to me after all. I would hate to get my priorities wrong about that. I see. That seems reasonable. But is he really sure about that? Yes, but kind of weird how I'm wavering over this more than he is. But Benimaru gave me a reassuring smile. I'm telling you, it's fine. Right here is the safest place in the world, and I've also asked Hakuro to guard them for me. If worst comes to worst, I'm sure he will step up and raise my progeny. So please, don't worry about me. Besides, I don't think I could possibly lose, and I also don't doubt your victory for a moment, Sir Rimuru. There was something bracing, refreshing to the way he said it. So he's nodding his approval, and everybody else in the room seemed to agree with him. Now I feel like I had the wrong idea all along. Ho, ho, ho! You're a very kind leader, Sir Rimuru. I'm sure you feel that way because you were born in peaceful times, but in a war-torn world like this one, it's not exactly the mainstream way of thinking, you see. My daughter Momiji is prepared for the worst, as is Lady Alvis. And more to the point, we also believe in Sir Benimaru. It was clear from his choice of words that Hakuro was being serious. And Momiji and Alvis, who had let themselves into the room at some point, were in full agreement. Exactly. My husband couldn't possibly fall in battle. I agree with Momiji. Sir Benimaru, if you were to do something like die on us, I'd chase you down to the ends of the earth and make you pay for it. So be ready. Guess they're all resolved to this. No point in me meaninglessly fretting over it then. All right. I get the message, yeah? I can't guarantee that we'll win this, but I will promise that we'll all make it back alive. Eh, you are in good hands, Sir Rimuru. Win, and all is well. I had kind of forgotten how incredibly confident Benimaru was all the time. When he and Sui were together, it's like there was nobody they couldn't beat. I could say the same for the Kumararanga duo too, actually. Yeah, I will do my best as well. Defeat is impossible, as will I, my master. No matter who the enemy is, one bite and it'll be as good as done. I wasn't so sure about that, but I got what he meant. Yeah, well, now's not the time to be wavering like this. We can't get all worried before a fight this big. It's kind of funny to see us stepping up to protect Leon of all people, but let's do our best and put an end to Michael's plan. That was my declaration of war. I wasn't about to sit here and give my team a bunch of pleasantries. If I thought we could maybe come to terms with Michael if we just sat down and talked things out, I'd say so, but not here. He's dangerous. He's got no sense of humanity at all, and he's willing to sacrifice anything to reach his goal. He's pretty much the worst kind of person, but at the end of the day, if someone's beyond negotiating with, all you can do is step up and settle things for good. Let's go! Everyone nodded. I'd fret over things once it was all over, and with that resolve, I was ready to transfer all of us to the battlefield. But while Rimuru and his staff were making preparations, the battle had already begun. There was no lengthy declaration of war at all. It began with Vega going on a rampage. Can't he take any strategic action at all? You said it. Kigali nodded at Feldway's pained complaint. Their mission here wasn't to lay waste to El Dorado. They needed to track down the possessor of the angelic skill, drag him out of there and add him to their force. Hearing that Feldway could use Michael's domination skills puzzled Kigali at first, but it made sense. It was a tactically sound way of keeping your supreme commander away from battle. So, without any further doubts, she accepted their plan. And a simple plan it was. 13 people were here on the field. Feldway, Velzard, Zarario, Pico, Garasha, Kigali, Yuki, Tear, Footman, Vega, Aulia, Arius, and Mai Furuki, and they were being asked to kick as much as us as possible. They'd mow down anyone who attempted to engage them, and in the meantime, they'd also search for the angelic skills possessor. They were working on conjecture instead of proven fact, but Kigali was all but certain this possessor was Leon. But even if she was wrong, that wasn't much of a problem. Just grab all the potential targets they could find, and the operation was as good as over if he didn't come out. If they hardened up the city's defenses instead, Kigali would lead a storming party to venture into the city. However, as soon as Maui teleported everyone there, Vega promptly ignored orders and went berserk, bashing and smashing up the city's defensive barrier. He was zooming his way to what appeared to be a royal castle, leaving a trail of carnage behind him. Even Kigali was appalled. I feel like this boost in power has made him stupider than ever. We can't use him in any coherent tactical maneuvers like this. In fact, we may have to seriously consider purging him. In their organization, breaking orders was strictly forbidden. If a senior officer was acting like this, it may already be too late to save military discipline around here. They'd likely need to discuss how to handle Vega, if only to make an example out of him to the rest of their force. Either way, though, the operation was now underway. Vega could be discussed when they were back. For now, Kigali decided to consult with Feldway about their direction. Belzard and I are a perfect diversion, but Zarario, Pico, Garasha, you stay here with us too. Everyone else will go under your command, so get out there, start bashing heads and figure out who we're after. Many people here were under Kigali's locking curse. Tyr and Footman, of course, but also walking dead incarnates like Arius, Aulia, and Mai. She couldn't force orders upon them. but she could telepathically communicate into their minds. Kigali was also a good operation planner, something Feldway appreciated, so she had the right to craft any kind of tactics she wanted out here. Thus, she gave the orders. We'll reprimand Vega for his outburst later. For now, just go all out against the enemy. You may retreat if you feel you can't win, so go out there and pummel them. Everybody there, except for Yuki, had freshly obtained untold amounts of power. They undoubtedly had more self-control than Vega, but they all couldn't wait to test how strong they had become. Thus, as soon as Kigali gave permission, everyone moved en masse. Kigali followed at a prudent distance. My own free will has been left intact as well as a certain amount of authority. I'm not sure I'll ever get an opportunity this good again. Perhaps it was wiser to wait for a better chance to arise. That thought crossed her mind, but Michael's current grip over it scared her deeply. If she were turned into a fully subservient puppet, all hope would be dashed. It was entirely possible that this would be her last chance. Optimism was a dangerous thing. So Kigali decided to take action. From the very beginning, she had no intention of pledging her allegiance to Feldway and his cohorts. In fact, she thought of both him and Michael as insane. So out of their minds, she could feel it on her skin. To her, she was sure any future that involved her and them was bleak indeed. I swear that I will not betray you, and I accept your dominion over me. That's right. Kigali swore that she wouldn't betray her companions, even if it meant accepting Michael's control over her. And no matter how dirty her hands got, she was prepared to return the favor she received from Yuuki. It looks like Michael's control is absolute within a certain range, but maybe the effect dwindles the farther you are from him. That, or if we can fully isolate ourselves in a different space from him, we could eliminate the effect entirely. Michael had done everything he could to search for the remaining angelic skills, but 3 were still missing, in some kind of safe zone from him. And that was Ramirez's labyrinth. If she could flee into there, Kigali and her friends had a chance at being saved. Fortunately, she was in an alliance with the demon Lord Rimuru, although that might be a bit doubtful by now. Yet as soft and good-natured as he was, there was an exceedingly good chance that he'd shelter them. So her mission here was to cause as big a commotion as possible, then find an opening for her escape. And to do that, can you hear me, Laplace? President? Wow, you're all right. Yes, but I'm in a tricky situation. So, well, give me your orders, boss. Where do you want me? El Dorado? Kigali played the most reliable card in her deck, and with that, Laplace joined the battle. Leon's force was feeling the strain. They had been expecting an attack, training for it, and today was the day. It didn't take long for Leon to receive a report that the city's defensive barrier was broken, allowing the enemy inside. There's only 8 of them, a pale-looking knight said in a later follow-up, but they possess massive strength. They've been allowed to penetrate the castle. Our forces are in disarray. Leon looked at Guy as the knight returned to battle. Any word from Rimuru? Oh, we're isolated here. Velzard, she's above us. There's more than 8 of them. If he was invading this city, Guy would move to rob the enemy of its cohesion as well. This was something they all expected. To deal with it, Rimuru was using Argos to monitor the situation with each of his forces as a countermeasure against just such a situation. There'd be a time lag, but at least they'd all know what's going on. Help would quickly be forthcoming, and even if it wasn't on time and the worst-case scenario occurred, Rimuru had another plan, one he'd explained with a chuckle. He probably wasn't being serious, and Leon wanted nothing to do with that plan, but if it got that bad, he wouldn't be in any position to protest. The worst case had to be prevented from happening. So now what? Should we wait here until Rimuru's backup arrives? That's going to be pretty difficult, Guy said. We would have had a lot of options if Velzard wasn't here. But once she gets serious in battle, she's liable to take down this entire city. I wouldn't like that. A spatial transfer required you to have accurate coordinates of both your current position and your destination. If contact beyond city limits was cut off, that meant the enemy was taking measures against that, no doubt. If their transport magic circle were destroyed as well, it'd delay the arrival of reinforcements even more. If they could buy another 10 or so minutes, Rimuru was probably going to show up. But if they wanted to hope for that, they had to protect this position with their lives. I'm sure you wouldn't. No. Guess I'm gonna have to go out and take them on then. Guy stood up. I'll join you. Let me show them just how serious I can be. Miseri and Rain joined him. After living together with them for the past few months, Leon knew exactly what they were capable of. Rainey, in particular, had been rapidly improving her skills, giving Leon a run for his money in their training. It'd annoy him to no end in normal times, but with her on his side, he saw her as a trustworthy ally. I wish she could always be that serious, complained Misery, and really, she spoke for everybody else. But then another problem child spoke up. Kay! I am rather reluctant to lend a hand to Guy, but I have my orders from Surimuru, and I will concentrate on those. You will have my assistance. Shall we go? Diablo smiled, as if to show how grateful Guy should be for this. Rainey shot back at him, triggering an argument. A disgusted Guy yelled at them, Miseri shaking her head in frustration all the while. And seeing them yell and scream as they left the room, Leon's only thought was how much of a happy family they were. But he didn't have time for them. Guy's team would handle the scene outside, but Leon had his own duties. He could hear his soldiers screaming out in the hallways. The battle clearly wasn't going their way. Even worse, any rash moves exposed him to potential mind control. The most frustrating thing of all, none of them are headed for the city, he asked Arlos the Silver Knight, the trusty assistant who always stood by him. Arlos used thought communication to speak with a few of his fellow knights before answering, "No, sir. All the enemies appear to be heading for the castle." Leon nodded. That, at least, was good news. In that case, have our magic knights seal off the castle. We'll isolate the intruders inside and keep them from reaching the outside world. Yes, sir. Deciding that any further worry for Guy was unwarranted, Leon sent a flurry of orders. If the enemies cooped up in the castle, there'd be no more damaging the city outside. Then he could wait for Rimuru's backup and defeat this foe inside their virtual cage. I want every knight captain engaging our enemies to prevent any further casualties. As you wish. Their standing defense force would never handle them all. Once the castle was sealed off with an isolation barrier, the knight captains would be sent in to intercept the enemy. It was time to deploy the troops they were preserving until now. The Yellow Knights, a team of defense specialists, would join the healers in the White Knights to maintain the city's defensive barriers. The Red Knights, geared for attacking, would then be dispatched to engage the enemy. That only left the Blue Knights, mainly suited as a commando unit. They'd take action as needed to cover any lightly guarded territory. Arlos took the lead, sending out Leon's commands. Then a group of 6 people suddenly appeared before the Demon Lord, kneeling in submission. "Demon Lord Leon, please grant us permission to go out as well." These were the generals serving under Guy. They technically served Miseri and Rain, and with their recent evolutions, they had been promoted to demon peers. Misura, the chief officer under Rain, must have had a hard time in her position because she was now at the duke level of the demon hierarchy. She was weaker than Moss, who was a Grand Duke, but she was a head above the rest of this group. Khan, Miseri's chief officer, wasn't lagging too far behind. Not as good in battle as Mysora, but strong enough to merit a Marquis title. Even the other 4 generals here were on par with the captains of the various Magic Knight Corps present. Idling them here would be a tremendous waste. Granted, said Leon. Get going. Work with Fran and the others and defeat our enemies. So the demons were unleashed. The only ones left in the room with Leon were his attendant Arlos and the Black Knight Claude, Arlos's instructor. Leon would have preferred them heading out to face their enemies as well, but since Leon himself was clearly the target, he needed some bodyguards with him. Frustrating, isn't it? Leon groused. Be patient, please, Arlos urged him. It's a little strange to be protecting someone like you, Sir Leon, but you must trust us and stay here. Just 8 enemies in the castle. We have 4 knight captains here, as well as those demons and a number of well-trained knight corps. There's no way we could lose. Claude was trying to assuage Leon. Arlos was optimistic, as if trying to remind himself of their chances. He knew it wouldn't be that easy, but he had to keep Leon from falling into the hands of the enemy. Patience was key right now. They had to await better news here on Leon's throne. Then, after a while, they began to sense violent tremors across the castle. The most intense battlefield was the site of Vega's rampage. Misora was in command with 4 other demons working to stall for time. Maita, the White Knight and captain of the White Knight Corps, was providing support. She was a blonde, blue-eyed woman with very ladylike features, but her specialty was healing, and her mere presence ensured they could fight for that much longer. Each demon was striking once, then retreating so Maita could heal them and help them back into battle to repeat the cycle. Faced with overwhelming violence, their only choice was to throw themselves into the fray and hope for the best. Misora's face contorted in pain. But she couldn't lose heart now. She had to endure her Master Rain's crazed rush over and over again in training, and in any case, Guy would purge her if she fled at this point. Better instead, she thought, to fight proudly and ensure she fulfilled her role. But while Vega's existence points numbered over 10 million, the top-level demons did no better than 500,000. Even Misora's app was at around 700,000. None of them had any ultimate skills, so the difference in firepower was obvious to everyone. Gah! Ha ha! Weak, 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 Sue, weak. Or maybe I'm too strong. Sorry, guys. You're so weak. I don't even feel like eating any of you. I guess that means your suffering will continue for a while, but don't hate me. Hate how weak you are. The trash talking came non-stop from Vega. He was trampling on the demon's pride, and they had no choice but to stay calm and deal with it. But that was their exact strategy, actually. With their gifts at reading emotions, the demons were trying to take advantage of Vega's personality, maintaining the stalemate by letting him kick all the ass he wanted. The fight against Vega was intense, but at least stable. By comparison, every moment of the fight against Arius was screeching with tension. It's all you can kill today? Oh man, oh man, oh man, this power is just so cool! Arius was lost in a never-ending spasm of violence, all his cool from his human years apparently lost. The ultimate enchantment, Sandalphon, had embodied itself in the form of a handgun that Arius could fire as much as he wanted, no reloading required. He also had a bastard sword in his right hand, a product of Orlia's multi-weapon skill. These 2 pieces of equipment were far more powerful than run-of-the-mill god-class gear, and Arius was making full use of them both as he slaughtered the knights. He seemed to be mimicking Lieutenant Kondo in battle style, likely expressing an aspiration that Arius himself would never admit to. Oxyon the Blue Knight had formed a tag team with Khan to challenge him. There was no way to make up for the weapon difference, but the 2 of them proved to be an excellent match in terms of skill. Khan was staking his pride as a great demon, casting magic to interfere with Arius's movements, while Oxyon's graceful sword strikes were letting him hold his own against this adversary. The latter also had a gift for support magic, which was huge. Their physical abilities and durability were both upgraded by multiple layers of magic from them both, but they still had almost no chance. This was a foe that not even a direct strike could injure, and Oxian, a nihilistic young noble, didn't expect to win from the start. Taking care not to break his sword, he just kept throwing himself in, trying to extend this battle as long as possible. This was one enemy he wanted to be sure would never reach his beloved Leon. It seemed like this fight would last forever, but it had only just begun. Fighting against Aulia were Fran and Kizona, commanders of the Red and Yellow Knights respectively. Fran was a healthy beauty with auburn skin, lightly armored and focused on offensive force, while Kizona was small, bright-faced and clad in heavy, full-body armor. If these two women had anything going for them, it was their foe's lack of fighting spirit. Aulia was being extremely careful. Unlike Vega and Arius, she was much more methodical about testing out her powers, testing multi-weapon to see what kinds of gear it could conjure. She had given a one-handed sword to Arius and a crescent bow to Maui, but for herself she prepared a morning star and a tower shield in order to test both her offense and defense. That personality quirk was proving to be a lifesaver for her adversaries. Using the two of them as experimental subjects, Aulia slowly but surely came to grips with the gear she had in hand thanks to her brand-new ultimate enchantment. Mao, meanwhile, was on the battlefield, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here. She had no idea why she should be fighting, but it was impossible to defy Michael's will. He had even brainwashed Yuki, someone she trusted immensely. There was no way someone like Maui could beat him. But that didn't mean she wanted to let off some steam against a bunch of knights he had no grudge against either. So she just watched from the sidelines. If she did join the fray, the battle would have long ago tilted in the Angel's favor, but that's not how it turned out. All this is gonna do is bring pain to us all. But what should I do? Tell me, Yuki. She was lost, troubled, and unable to find an answer. She would still need some more time before she could make a move. Guy's party stormed out to intercept the enemy, only to find a giant blizzard blowing outside. It was a special gift from Velzard. "I'll take care of her," Guy said, and nobody was about to stop him. The two of them had fought many times, from long ago in the past to just recently, but frankly, Velzard was crazily strong. Guy was her only natural opponent here, and she wasn't holding back one bit either. As if to prove it, she had transformed herself from a young girl to an adult woman, her eyes golden instead of their usual deep sea blue. They shone bewitchingly beautifully, portending great disaster to come. This human state was Velzard fighting in her real mode, and it made Guy realize just how serious she was. That and Velzard had gone mad, in a good way. When Guy flew up to her, floating in the middle of this great snowstorm, she found him shouting with joy. "I love you, Guy. So join me and let's kill, and kill some more," she challenged him, a gigantic smile on her face. I told you that's nothing but trouble." Guy was just as serious about fighting back. Trying to take it easy against Velzard would be tantamount to suicide. So, here in the skies above the castle, a battle broke out between two of the most powerful forces in the world. Yes, Guy was strong. His EP was extremely high, almost reaching 40 million. But Velzard was simply on another level. Her powers more than twice that of Guy, unimaginably. She was the younger sister of the Creator for a reason, and here on the surface of the planet she wielded absolute power. And what's worse, she had never truly fought all out before, not even against her sister Velgrin. She always took the form of a little girl when she did, sealing away her powers. When she obliterated Veldora, that was nothing but a playful blow to her. Her strikes weren't just powerful. They were energy efficient. The only time she ever got serious was when she fought against Guy. He could only fight on an even keel with her thanks to his superior fighting sense. He was also trying to ensure this fight didn't damage people and buildings on the ground as much as possible, which perhaps says something about just how all-powerful Guy Crimson can be. The battle, as usual, was shaping up to be a stalemate. Then Guy realized something. She's not being controlled at all. He was sure she was, but in his mind, she simply chose not to resist this thrall, likely because her desires matched those of her cohorts. Belzard just looked so happy, a face that brought back memories for Guy, one she only showed in the midst of battle. It wasn't exactly good news, though. Guy was fed up with it. She had bottled up all these desires of hers for so long, and here comes Feldway and his gang, freeing it all. Until Velzard could be convinced otherwise, in other words, their relationship would never improve. If this were merely about mind control, they could shut it off and everything would be fixed. But it wasn't, and now Guy had nothing left to try. Velzard wasn't going to be persuaded. The only way to restore her sanity was to let her have at it with Guy for as long as she wanted. I never should have left my bedroom today. Guy was whining, but there was a bold smile on his face. He lunged at his enemy once more, enjoying every moment. In the skies, even higher above the castle than Velzard and Guy, Feldway and Zerario were facing off against Diablo. So a single evil demon wants to take us both on? Looks like you don't know your place, do you? You told me to prepare for the worst the next time we met. You will be entertaining me today, won't you? Fair. I don't have time to play with you. He's all yours, Zerario. Feldway wanted to avoid a decisive battle with Diablo. He knew how much of a headache that demon was, and he hesitated to take him on in a serious fight. So, without saying another word, he left for the castle. Diablo thought about getting in his way, but Zerario wouldn't allow it. The angel hated every bit of this situation, especially how he was forced into it, and honestly, he wanted to say no to Feldway. But it was an order from his direct boss, and he had no choice but to comply with it. Well, so be it. I suppose you've obtained the name Diablo in the meantime, but let's see just how much stronger you've become. With those words, the two of them entered battle. Zerario may not have wanted to be here very much, but he liked his chances. He had just obtained a physical body, and already it seemed to fit like a glove. For the first time in too long, he could exert his full strength without breaking himself in the process, and the thought was already lifting his spirits. 8-way dark authority. He decided to go first. The technique was simple. Gather his aura around his palm, then release, but the power was immeasurable. 8 projectiles streamed toward Diablo. Ridiculous. So that truly is all you have to offer. Diablo, on the other hand, couldn't have sounded more bored. It wasn't some strategy to egg his opponent on or brag about his superiority. He meant it. It might have been one thing if one side here was notably stronger than the other, but in an even match, you had to be very careful with your first few moves. Lightly dodging these blasts of force, Diablo glared at Zerario. Wasting your energy like this, were you just happen to have a little muscle? He was being pretty serious about that. Zerario maintained his composure, despite how annoying he found this. This is exactly why I hate him, he thought as he hid his anger. Silence. That doesn't even count as expending energy to me. The absolute amounts of power that each of us contains are like night and day. You should worry about yourself first before giving a thought to me. This much was the truth. Zerario was a different creature from back when he stormed Ramirez's labyrinth. With his physical body, he was able to fully tap into the power of his real body from back in the Mystic Palace. With an EP count of over 20 million, he was sure not even a true dragon could defeat him. A little excessive energy use could be made up for, instantly. It wasn't worth worrying about. But Diablo sniffed at this. This is why amateurs don't belong here. In our battles, we must either eliminate the opponent with a single blow or prepare ourselves for a prolonged fight. If you don't understand that, Zerario, well, you've been lazy with your training, haven't you? His superiority complex was starting to grate on Zerario. He could put up with it if Diablo talked this way after beating him, but this fight had only just begun. Trying to sap your opponent's will to fight is a perfectly valid strategy, but that didn't seem to be Diablo's aim here. He was honestly, seriously giving him a word of warning. Zerario understood that, and it irritated him even more. "Shut your mouth! I don't need any of your advice. You don't need to worry about me. I fought on the front lines for years and years against the Insectors, the nemesis of both us and you demons. I need to teach you that people like you, lounging around here on the surface, are nothing to me." Well, good to know that. And don't worry. I've been constantly fighting to the death against Sir Zegion as well. He's an Insector too, and on the strong side of them, I believe. Also, much to my envy, Sir Imuru has even granted him some of his cells, so there's very little to his body that's vulnerable at all. Even for me, he is a difficult foe to conquer. When he said very little of Zegion is vulnerable to attack, he didn't mean it literally. That was just a rule Diablo invented for himself when he fought him. He didn't want to target anywhere on Zegion's body that may contain Rimuru's cell matter. This rule was also the reason why the 3 demonesses had yet to defeat Zegion, but that's another story. I don't know what you're talking about, but none of the training you could do on this world could ever. Zerario stopped himself mid-sentence. It didn't dawn on him at first, but that name Zegion was familiar to him. Diano described him as a serious challenge, and even Zeranus demonstrated a healthy interest in him, didn't he? And if Diablo was not just training, but literally fighting to the death against him, perhaps this is no time for playing after all. So Zerario finally resolved to get serious, and the real battle between him and Diablo was about to begin. Pico and Garasha were standing before Rain and Misery. It's cold, but Rain's heart was already about to break. If I weren't a demon, she thought, I'd be running for the nearest fireplace long ago, but she had to focus on how to work her way through this. "Rain, didn't you say a moment ago that you were going to show your true colors? Why do you look so unmotivated right now?" "What a foolish question, Misery." "It's because I'm cold." "Why do we have to fight in this cold? In the middle of a blizzard, no less, against someone we don't even dislike at all?" She wasn't even trying to hide her true feelings to Misery. It shocked her to hear it, but even more amazingly, Rainey wasn't the only one with that opinion. "You're so right." It was Pico, the enemy, who spoke up. "It's pure white all over the place. We've got zero visibility, and why do I have to fight dressed like this, too?" Pico did look cold, actually. So did Garasha, for that matter. "Oh, stop complaining. I'm just as cold, you know." She might have been admonishing Pico, but it was obvious that she shared her feeling. Rainy and Misery's maid outfits didn't exactly offer much insulation either, but Pico and Garasha were wearing only a single, thin layer of clothing. Garasha's shoulders were bare even. Just looking at her would make one shiver. "Wait, so am I the only one seriously trying to fight?" Misery, realizing this devastating truth, was visibly upset. The other 3 paid her no mind, sympathizing with each other over these terrible conditions. Like, "I really wish Lady Velzard would stop conjuring up blizzards like this out of nowhere." "Oh, for real. I wouldn't mind that much, but I wish she could have given us some warning, you know? Then I would have brought my fur coat along. I could have at least shown off a little." "Whoa, Pico, when did you buy a fur coat?" "Yeah." "Oh, I did a little shopping between jobs." "Oh, from that city before? I bet you could find some good deals there." They were talking about Blumond, now a vital link between East and West, where all sorts of products from around the world gathered. That included goods from Tempest, of course, including some very high-quality clothing and accessories. Pico and Garasha were supposed to be monitoring this world, but they were also having fun traveling all over it. Much like Dieno, they danced to the beat of their own drum. They also had houses worldwide to serve as their bases, which helped a lot as they stayed at the forefront of high fashion. So now everybody was starting to hit it off with each other, despite Rainie's wary eyes upon them all. "You can boast all you want, but we have some business first, don't we?" These words came as a surprise to Misery. "Ah, there goes Rainie again." Was she whining a moment ago in order to catch those two off guard? I didn't think she was looking to do something like that. She had to applaud her co-worker for it. And if that was the case, Misery was just waiting for the signal to start fighting. Instead, what she heard was Rain taking it another step further. "But we can't hold a conversation in a place like this, can we? Don't you think we should get out of the cold first?" The other three were shocked at how self-serving this was. The entire concept of friend and foe was thrown out the window, leaving nothing but confusion in its wake. But Rainie didn't care. Swiftly alighting on the ground, she cast a certain spell. Strategic magic, Cositus. Rain. Hey. That spell could destroy the city. "Wah! Since when were you that good with it?" Misery was at a loss for words, and she had a right to be. Rain was just going nuts. Cositus, the spell she cast, was meant to encase a wide area in ice all at once. Its range depended on the power of the caster, but if Rain wanted to, she could turn a 20-mile radius around her into an ice ring. Misery had no idea why she was playing with fire, or rather ice, like that, but in a few moments she was greeted by a perfect 10-foot-tall cube of ice. It was teeming with evil magic, but it hadn't caused any damage at all. Rainie seemed to cast it just because she could, more than anything else. It began to seem like some kind of joke. "Well," Rainie smugly asked. Pico grinned, perhaps understanding her intent. "Garasha." "Oh, I'm on it. I know exactly what you're thinking." Garasha was in on whatever this was, too. Seizing the opportunity, she quickly prepared a spell of her own. Icebreaker. This was another elemental magic, a fairly high-level one to cast on a single target. It deliberately froze the moisture in the atmosphere, then crushed the resulting blades of ice, an outstandingly lethal move. But Garasha nimbly manipulated this spell so that all it did was hollow out the large cube of ice before them. So their impromptu igloo was now complete. "You do pretty good work." "You too." Rainie and Garasha complimented each other. A new friendship was budding. "Let's go inside." Pico was the first to bound in, Rainie and Garasha following without a second thought. Misery, left outside, just stood there, mouth open. Rainie, that wasn't a joke or a strategy or anything. You were serious." But the only one who could answer that question was inside the igloo. So Misery, feeling like an incredible fool, hurriedly went in. "So, yeah, I probably shouldn't tell you exactly how we did it, since it's a secret and all, but both of us had the honor of being evolved by Sir Rimuru's hand." That was Rain wrapping up her answer to Garasha. She was asking her why they seemed so much stronger than before. "You're blabbing about that much to the enemy?" Well, whatever. Misery had given up on corralling her companion, but Rainie was gaining a lot of information from Pico and Garasha, too. For one, it seems their skills, as well as Dieno's, were under the full control of Michael. Pico also had the ultimate skill, Gibril, Lord of Rigor, and Garasha had her own in Haniel, Lord of Glory. And although they didn't seem to be aware of it, Rainie surmised that Michael put on some kind of restraint that prevented either of them from defying his orders. All that, plus a full picture of the enemy force's strength. By comparison, Rain hadn't given out much intel. Casually name-dropping Rimuru like that was ill-advised, but she hadn't been told not to, so what's the problem? There wasn't any, at least in Rain's mind. If Rimuru heard about it, he'd probably whip himself for not explicitly forbidding it before yelling at her. Regardless, in exchange for revealing that Rimuru helped them evolve, Rain had obtained some pretty vital intelligence. After that, though, the meeting turned into a bitch fest, everyone talking about their difficulties and complaining about their bosses. All four of them, by the way, had a magic-powered fire going inside this igloo, making things feel very pleasant. Rainey also had some sweet potatoes with her, which she placed on skewers and roasted over the fire, so there was a light, pleasant aroma in the air. She'd even brought some sweet sake. "This is perfect for cold weather," said Rain. "You brought that too?" "Oh, don't frown at her, Mise. You shouldn't be such a stick in the mud like that. I think it's just fine, you know." "You say that, Garasha, but I'm sure you just want a swig of that, don't you?" "I do too, so I won't stop you." "Exactly, Mise. When the fighting's over, we will all make up over drinks. That's how these things should go." The fighting never began in the first place, but nobody besides Misery was going to mention that right now. It was 3-1, though, leaving her with no choice but to give up. So this epic battle was transformed into a nice little winter retreat for the four of them. And as the rest of the fighting continued to rage outside the igloo, they continued trading their takes in hushed tones. Leon sat on his throne. His days of peace were over. With a loud, splintering sound, the grand door leading to this audience chamber caved in. Amid the carnage, the intruder appeared, walking in majestically. "Ah, ho, ho, ho. Hello there, everybody. My name is Footman, the Angry Jester, member of the Moderate Jesters. Glad to make your acquaintance." Between his rotund body and angry clown mask, he was a bizarre sight to see. But Leon was familiar with this jovial-sounding clown. He had done business with him before. They were bound by a contract that, by now, was nothing but an embarrassing memory. And while this clown seemed rather powerful at the time, it was nothing compared to now. Leon sensed a strange, eerie force from him. But what did he want? If he was here to capture him, it'd surely be too reckless to barge in alone. So the enemies outmuscled us, in the end, but I don't understand. What's this man thinking? If he could help the rest of our allies, perhaps we could turn the tables on this war, but... Leon stood up. "So you've come here all alone?" bellowed Arlof. "Don't tell me you expect to come out alive?" Claude, meanwhile, stood motionless with one hand on his sword, ready to protect Leon at any moment. Leon pondered the situation. Footman, he thought, must have had some other objective. That, or... But just then, a woman came through the broken door and entered the audience chamber. "Ah, there you are, Demon Lord Leon. Do you remember me?" It was a beautiful, graceful woman speaking, a chuckle on her lips. She was in a navy blue business suit, making her look like the quintessential secretary. Her skin was smooth and pale, her blonde hair tied in a chignon around her well-balanced face. Her blue eyes had a mysterious glow to them, and she had them pointed directly at Leon. "Then again, I suppose this is the first time some of you have seen me since my change in appearance. My name is Kigali, and I am president of the Moderate Jesters. I do have a grudge against you for killing me, so I thought fit to take you on by myself." Kigali was being almost too theatrical as she gave this introduction. 2 clowns followed her into the room. The one with the crying mask was Tear, carrying a massive scythe on her back. "I'm Tear," she said with a laugh, the teardrop jester on the team. "I hate being sad, and I'm gonna eliminate any enemy of Lady Kigali's on the double." To prove her point, she dexterously spun her scythe in the air in a dance-like movie. Then she gave the stage over to Laplace, another clown with an asymmetrical mask and a demeanor that made it seem like he was constantly making fun of you. And I'm Laplace, the wonder jester, vice president of the moderate jesters. We're having some lovely weather outside, ain't we? Oh, but that doesn't matter right now, huh? I was told to sprint all the way here, and boy, are my legs tired. And look at all the commotion around here, too. I really wish I could just go home. Laplace's introduction was really more of a rant, which certainly fit his personality. But once the clowns were done, the last member appeared, a young man wearing a black imperial uniform and an intrepid smile. It was Yuuki Kagurazaka, still under Michael's full control. Hey, guess I'm going up last, huh? My name's Yuki, and you're the Demon Lord Leon, right? I feel like I might have met you before, but my memory's going on me a little, so I can't be too sure. Sorry. Michael's rule over people worked on set levels. There were two types of domination, one where the subject still had free will and one where certain restrictions were put in place. When he dominated someone via their angelic skills, there was no threat of being betrayed, so Michael gave him a lot of leeway in their behavior. Yuki, on the other hand, was ruled via regalia dominion, which meant considerable checks on what he could do. In a way, this was Michael recognizing what Yuki was capable of. If he saw him as someone less capable, he would have allowed free thought, like what Kigali and the others enjoyed. Regardless, this had the effect of making Yuki appear suddenly absent-minded. Once he finished introducing himself, he leaned against the destroyed doorframe, seemingly uninterested in Leon and his attendant. Leon could grasp the situation. There were 5 adversaries in total, each with strength equal to, or really greater than, his own. Between that and being outnumbered, the situation couldn't be much worse. Realizing this, he began to waver over whether to invoke one of his most secret moves. Maybe he could take one of them out himself, but if he wanted to survive, he needed to put it all on the line. If it didn't work out, he had to run, and he had preparations for that in place, too. He only wavered because in Kigali's eyes he saw not madness, but rational reason. Rimuru told him before that Kigali was previously the demon lord Kazalim. He had almost forgotten about that man entirely, but even now he could vividly recall the insanity in his eye. The current Kigali might describe it as being mad with envy, but to Leon at the time, it was nothing short of terrifying. Now, however, she was as beautiful as lapis lazuli. It's not a different person, no? But she must have some kind of agenda for this. And would that mean there's room to negotiate? Despite all the pressure, Leon had an accurate bead on his foe's situation. But the clowns were still talking in front of him. Demon Lord Leon, you are not only responsible for the downfall of Sir Kazalim, but for leaving Clayman, the crazed clown, our brother and friend, to die. You will not have an easy death, I promise you, because I'm quite angry right now. Footman bent his portly frame in a bow. Yeah, continued Laplace, that fool Clayman didn't become a demon lord just for fun. He was the only one for the job, so we sent him out as a replacement for our president if something happened to her. And now look how it's turned out, huh? Ah, what a regret. Perhaps it was his memory of Clayman that added this twinge of sadness to his voice. It truly is sad, isn't it? But now Lady Kigali's given us this opportunity for revenge. I'm going to throw all my hatred at you, so don't fall down till we're all done. With Tia's final despondent statement, the battle began. Leon had 3 people on his team. Kigali had 5, but Yuki didn't seem interested in joining in. Tia faced Arlos, with Claude serving as Footman's opponent. The remaining 2, of course, would be paired with Leon. Normally defeat would have been inevitable, but it was not to be. Breaking out his flame pillar sword, Leon brought it in front of him, just in time for Kigali to strike with the ruin scepter she borrowed from Michael. The shockwave of two god-class weapons clashing with each other reverberated across the chamber, and as they did, Leon heard a voice in his mind. "Hey, can you hear me? I want to talk." Leon nodded back. His guess was right. "Thank you. Thank you. There are eyes on me. That's why I did what I did. There's no such thing as being too careful with this." That seemed true enough. Leon looked at Kigali, urging her to continue. They were playing out a heated battle through all this, their conversation being held on a thin tightrope. Laplace was there, by the way, to serve as a conduit for their thought communication. The master and servant relationship he had with Kigali was being used to encrypt the information being transmitted before relaying it over to Leon. Leon's responses would get filtered through Laplace as well, getting encrypted again before reaching Kigali. This roundabout process was designed to keep Michael from reading her mind. Kigali believed that he couldn't read everything that went through her brain, so she kept her thoughts deep down, behind multiple layers of barriers. She was being so careful because here, right now, she was about to betray Michael. She once had a grudge against Leon, but had regained some composure now that she was far away from Michael. Thanks to that, she concluded it was best to join forces with Leon after all. As long as she could get inside Ramirez's labyrinth, she could escape Michael's surveillance on her, and something also told her that the mysterious slime over there would do anything to free her and her friends. "You must have some kind of emergency access way in here, don't you? We can't reach the labyrinth via magic, but if there's a way, we'd like access to it." They could magically transport themselves, but it'd be a risk. Such unexpected behavior on Kigali's part might make Michael tighten the reins on her. Ideally, she wanted to flee directly into the labyrinth, and if that wasn't possible, she wanted to meet someone on the other side, ready to receive them as refugees. All right. I understand your situation. Well, I'm glad to see you're so unhurried about this, but Michael is after you, you realize? You possess Metatron, Lord of Purity, don't you? I will not deny it. Even Leon recognized that there was no point hiding it any longer. They must have known already. They wouldn't be attacking his domain otherwise. That lent a lot more credence to what Kigali and her team told him. With this much difference between them in firepower, there was no point stringing Leon along for information like this. Normally, they could just disable him and drag him in front of Michael. Plus, as flashy and obviously violent as Tyr and Footman were, Arlos and Claude were still safe and uninjured. If they really wanted to kill his attendants, they'd almost certainly be in pieces by now. Under these circumstances, there was no reason to perpetuate this act, and that's why Leon was convinced Kigali meant what she said. All right, I'll trust you. There is indeed a transport magic circle in this castle that leads directly to the labyrinth. I knew it. Kigali's face lit up. Now her plan seemed much more likely to succeed than before. And as their blades continued to clang against each other, she leaned forward and began to negotiate even more fiercely. Leon might have thrown away his suspicions, but he still wasn't sure whether to meekly give the nod. But as he wavered, the smile of Chloe, the girl he loved, passed through his mind. A smile that was directed not at him but at Rimuru. Dark, brooding feelings began to well up from deep within his heart. This was not jealousy. Absolutely not. He tried to swallow up these feelings, enduring them for as long as they lasted. And then, he thought, Rimuru would accept this group, I'm sure. It'd be pushing more trouble on his plate, but I won't exactly have a guilty conscience about it. No. If anything, the thought refreshed him. Maybe he had nothing to worry about at all. So, with a broad nod, he began to be much more proactive with Kigali. So would it be just you five? Yeah. Yuki has his own followers, but they can't be trusted. I'm planning to leave them here. They're not going to die anyway, and there's no point using them as hostages against us either. Wouldn't taking them along help reduce our enemy's force that much more? Leon was being oddly kind to him. He kept being misunderstood as this cold-hearted miser, but that was chiefly thanks to his social awkwardness. You know, you're not at all like what I thought. You never gave me a break the last time we fought. I couldn't help that. I had a demon lord attacking me, and I lost my cool. If I wanted to prevent civilian casualties, I couldn't let that fight extend for too long. That was understandable. If two evenly matched demon lords fought each other, the damage to the surrounding area would be devastating. If he wanted to avoid that, a quick, decisive battle was likely in Leon's best interest. That's fair. Besides, I was a fool back then anyway. I have no right to complain about it to you. Forget I brought it up. Leon wasn't sure how to react. He expected a lot more complaining. You truly have changed. And then, leaving those muddled words behind, he flipped the page. So, the magic circle in question is behind this chamber. This room itself is the most protected place in the castle, complete with a multi-layer barrier. Open the hidden door behind the throne and you'll see it. Thank you. Thank you. But what will you do? Michael's objective was Leon. Kigali was implicitly inviting him to escape together with her. Leon didn't hesitate in his response. I will stay here. If I intended to escape, I would have gone to Rimuru first thing. Kigali nodded. It made sense to her. Michael's rule over you will be absolute, keep in mind. Yes, but it must involve certain conditions. If the worst happens and I turn into his puppet, I'm sure Guy will analyze the process and come up with a way to cut it off. That was one reason he was staying, but it wasn't all of it. In truth, Leon's chief interest was doing what he personally could to protect the citizens of El Dorado. That was the will of Leon Cromwell, a man even willing to abandon his title as hero to protect those of mixed human and monster blood. You truly are an awkward character, aren't you? Throwing yourself away to struggle so mightily for the sake of others? Not true. You won't find many people as immoral as I am. I'm willing to sacrifice others even for the sake of the one person I love, and that's something I'll have to personally pay for. That was how Leon expressed his resolve. Kigali, realizing this, decided to respect that will of his. She needed to save her own team first. She didn't intend to waste time persuading him otherwise. So they had a plan. Kigali went through Laplace to inform Tyr and Footman of it as well. Leon, meanwhile, was in contact with Arlos and Claude about it. Neither of them felt their foes were seriously fighting either, and now Leon explained to them why. That only left Yuki, and by this point they could just drag him up on that circle if it came to it. Leon looked at Kigali, signaling the location of the hidden door. Reading this sign, Kigali pretended to be blown backward by an attack, bashing herself against the door. Laplace, seeing it open, gave his own signal to Footman and Tyr. Arlos and Claude, playing along, pretended to be thrown backward as well, allowing their opponents to scramble through the door. "Sir Yuki." "Oh, I'm up," came the reply as he strode inside. "Okay, now we just have to have Leon activate the magic circle." Kigali was sure of her success. It was a tightrope the whole way, but now she could escape from Michael. Oh, she should have. Alas, fate had already forsaken them all. Michael, who remained in the Celestial Palace, had picked up on Obela's treachery before Dano could report to him about it. He was furious. Never before in his life had something like this happened. Seeing things go wrong with his plan made him seethe with rage. The cause of this, if you drilled down deep enough, was his own naivete. He had the absolute power of rule over them all, but he believed he had a friendship with them all too, this ambiguous, inexact factor, and now it had led to this. Obela had only just obtained Azrael, Lord of Salvation, but Michael was already aware. He should have tightened his rule over here right at that point, and not doing so was his mistake. It was up to him to make up for it, so as furious as he was, he began to think rationally. Then, through Feldway, he strengthened his ultimate dominion grip on his servants with angelic skill. And with that, Kigali was drained of her sense of self. There was just one more step, but it was so endlessly far away. Feldway appeared through the audience chamber's broken door. "You know, I was wondering what was going on here. Look at you, plotting to betray us. You stupid fools, completely misunderstanding my cause." Seeing Feldway shouting in a rage, Kigali knew her plan had failed. She tried to at least get Laplace and the others through the circle to safety, the next best solution. All she had to do was order them to do it, but now she was blocked from so much as uttering a single word. "Don't bother. We've completely taken you over with ultimate dominion. Sir Michael is quite angry with you. We've let you do what you've pleased for too long," he said. "And also—" Leon had stopped. Feldway's cold gaze shot right through him. "I see that the man we wanted is in here. You will be our loyal servant too." Before his voice was even heard, Leon activated Metatron with everything he had. He wanted to unleash a blast at divine speed, hoping to kill in a single shot. But he was already too late. "Damn it, I can't resist this." A new loyalty for Michael, a man he had never met in his life, began to shoot up from the depths. His memories and knowledge were all intact, but now Leon's ego was filled with a feeling of sheer ecstasy. "Chloe, you are mine!" The smile of the girl he loved, suddenly flashing through his mind, was similarly overwritten by this irresistible elation. Just like Kigali's, Leon's mind had been taken. All his feelings for his beloved companions had been replaced by his utter faith in Michael. "Every single time, I always blow the landing." Kigali lamented her fate, feeling tremendously sad about it all, but even that regret soon disappeared. "Hey, President, you gonna give up now? Come on. I believe in ya." A sudden voice confounded her, but it was like a child crying through multiple sheets of glass. She couldn't clearly make it out. "Kigali, does your locking curse not work on him?" "No, Laplace is special, so he doesn't have to heed my orders." "Oh, well, we don't need him then." The cold voice, devoid of all emotion, propagated itself into Kigali's ear. "All right. Thank you for everything, Laplace. At least allow me to finish you off by my own hand." "President." Only Laplace was bewildered by this sudden change in Kigali. Tear, Footman, Yuki, even their former enemy Leon just watched on like all of this was obvious. Kigali's ruined scepter glowed a golden color. "Don't just stand there." And when Laplace had given up all hope, a woman appeared out of nowhere and pushed him away. Then, with her sword, she deflected Kigali's all-destroying ray of golden light. "Who are you?" "I don't have time to tell you, but hey, how about I do? I'm Sylvia, and I'll take care of things in here. Think of me as, like, a super-strong hired hand." She was a beautiful woman, her long greenish silver hair in a large braid. Her thin dress, with its silken luster, was high-end Tempestian make, suited for use in battle. Her legs were visible through the slits in the dress, and if you took a closer look, you could see that she was wearing denim shorts underneath. Maybe she wanted to be safe in case of a really intense fight, but if so, she should have just worn pants instead. Her fashion sense was selfishness personified. You could tell she didn't want to give up on looking nice no matter what. And that, in turn, said a lot about her personality. The woman called herself Sylvia, Leon's instructor, and someone called up as a final ace in the hole. The sight of Sylvia filled Laplace with nostalgia. He was a walking dead created by Kigali, and while Kigali never exacted her thrall on him, thanks to his hero role pre-death perhaps, he had lost almost all of his memory. He didn't know that his real name was Thalion Grimwald, and he also had no idea that Sylvia, the woman who just saved his hide, was his wife. Nonetheless, he could instinctively tell that Sylvia was someone important to him. I don't know what's going on, but I'm a man too, you know. I ain't pathetic enough to leave all this to a little girl like you. It was back to Laplace as usual. Things had moved so fast that he needed some time to catch up, but then that wasn't unusual for him. So, like always, he just did what he could to get out of trouble. You guys, if you're still alive, you got to get out to here, okay? I'm sure Tyr and Footman tired you all out, and you ain't gonna survive what's about to happen, okay? His eyes were still fixed upon Kigali and Yuuki, but he was talking to Arlos and Claude, both sprawled out in a corner of the chamber. They both somehow had enough healing potion to hold out so far, but the bags around their waists, despite their specially expanded capacity, were nearly empty. They barely had any escape route at this rate, but still, they sniffed at Laplace's call. "Ha ha ha! Don't worry about us. Like I always tell my students, when times are tough, running away's the last thing you want to do. I need to set the example for them, you know, or else they'll never do it. True knight would never abandon his lord in times of need." They both understood they were no longer a force, but a liability in this battle. But they still refused to leave because they were prepared to sacrifice their lives for Leon. They believed that Rimuru would come to the rescue before long, so they were willing to take years off their own lives to keep buying time. Man, you guys are dumb, you know that? Ha ha ha! High praise coming from a clown like you. I don't think that was meant as a compliment, Sir Claude, but I do envy you. At least you still have it in you to laugh over this. A small smile appeared on Arlos's lips. He and Claude were resolved to the fates, and that fact made them strong. And Laplace, too, was rethinking matters. Can't lose out to these guys. No. Okay, let's start over. If we kill that guy over there, the president'll go back to normal, right? Well, count me in. With that, he glared at Feldway. His gut told him that he, not Michael, who wasn't in the room, was doing a lot more to cause this. So the battle returned to the audience chamber, pitting Laplace, Sylvia, and two sorely wounded knights against Feldway, Kigali, Leon, Yuki, Footman, and Ter. It was 4 against 6, and the strength difference wasn't even worth calculating. Sylvia. Quick question. What's up? How far do you think we can go with them? Be honest. Well, I don't think my answer will make you too happy. Nah, actually, never mind. Laplace laughed. She had a point. Something about this exchange tugged at Sylvia's heartstrings. It wasn't the conversation itself, really, just the presence of Laplace himself. It seemed so comfortably familiar. Do I know him, maybe? No, that can't be right. But, well, now's no time to worry about things like that. Sylvia may have had a willowy, graceful body, but she was unmistakably a seasoned warrior. She wasted no time focusing her attention on her enemy. Feldway, meanwhile, wasn't moving. He fully intended to leave the grunt work to his servants. That was how little he thought of Sylvia's side. But maybe there was a silver lining to the impossibly long odds they were facing. That arrogance of his could be fatal, is what I'd like to tell him, but he's the head primordial angel, isn't he? I heard about him from Twilight, but honestly, he's probably stronger than I am, huh? As lackadaisical as that demigod was, it was best not to take him at his word. Sylvia had been tricked by him many times, leading to all sorts of unpleasant situations. But judging by what the primordials were doing, they certainly couldn't be a bunch of weaklings. Even if it was just a bunch of talk, Sylvia could tell she was outclassed. As they confronted each other, she could sense this thick, awful presence. Everybody in this room was a monster, Arlos and Claude included. In another time, Even they could have had a legitimate shot at calling themselves demon lords and getting away with it. But Feldway was in his own dimension. Fighting him head-on would surely lead to defeat. The only strategy to take right now was to stall for time. El mentioned Rimuru, thought Sylvia. He's coming soon, right? I don't know how well he can do against these freaks of nature, but he even defeated Velgrin, didn't he? Well, we'll just have to hope. Sylvia, as a high disciple of Twilight's, was proud of her considerable abilities. Her rep was just under 2 million, giving her the fighting ability of an awakened demon lord, and her weapon of choice was a god-class Vajra, surpassing Leon's sword in terms of level. She could change out the number of blades on it whenever she wanted, and she excelled at stabbing away with it like a spear. Moreover, she even had the ultimate skill, Indra, Lord of Thunder, making her stronger than Tear and Footman. But not even that would put her at Feldway's level. She couldn't even shine his boots. Despite all the bold words she had for Laplace, it'd be a major challenge to turn the tables here. But if Feldway wasn't making any moves, they still had a chance at winning. She was aware of the chance Leon was under someone's control. She had explained to him how to separate a skill from his heart core, and she was sure he was struggling hard to regain himself right now. If he succeeded, there was a very good chance the skill would be lost entirely. Which is exactly what Obela did, by the way. The penalty in terms of battle strength would no doubt be enormous. Either way, it wouldn't be very easy, so she taught it to Leon as a last resort. And, yeah, that's up to Leon anyway. He was a real skilled pupil, but will he succeed? I'd say it's around 50-50 maybe. She couldn't be too optimistic about it, but there was still a chance Leon could return to battle. Pinning their hopes on that was far too reckless a bet, but she didn't have any other bright ideas. Complaining wasn't going to help either way, though, so all she could do was brace herself and do the best she could. Okay, you two, focus on supporting me. And you, the clown, your opponent is... It's me, isn't it? Well, I gotta do some work, I guess. Don't want my rep to be hurt. Yuki, one of their enemies, interrupted Sylvia. Wasting no further time, he unleashed a kick on Laplace. Bars. Are you serious? Laplace might have the battle start on him without warning, but he still didn't neglect to ingratiate himself with his new friend. I'm a clown, yeah, but my name's Laplace, okay? He had to shout it at Sylvia as he fought off Yuki. Well, Laplace, you really are a dangerous one. I think there's room for one more. How about I join Seiyuki against you? Now Kigali was part of the fray. Hey, no fair. I'm gonna start crying before too long, you know. Even Laplace was facing a crisis at this point. Fighting just one of them was enough of a hassle. If they were going at him simultaneously, he had no more time to joke around. But then Leon made a move. Looks like I'll be facing you then, Master Sylvia. But personally, I don't want to point a sword at you. Would you be willing to defect to our side? He gave the offer with only the most gentlemanly of politeness. Even being controlled like this, his memory was still intact. If Michael or Feldway ordered her dead, there was nothing he could do about that. But if not, he still had some control over himself. That being said, he had been ordered not to betray his new master no matter what. Making this offer to Sylvia was about the best he could do for her. Leon, look, you called me here, didn't you? Yeah, and that is why I hope you could take my side in. This is getting nowhere. You know I don't want you to hate me, Leon. If I said yes to you right now, you know you'd complain to high heaven about it once you're back to normal. Sylvia smiled at him. She knew exactly what Leon's purpose in life was and what he had always lived for. She understood his true feelings, and she wasn't there to turn her back on them. But it didn't come across to Leon. Leon still had his memories of Chloe, too. He still cared about her deeply, but that didn't take precedence above his orders. You have a girl you like, don't you? What would that girl think if she saw you right now, Leon? The question shook his heart, but he clamped down on it at once, regaining his cool. What a ridiculous question. I will just fulfill my wishes after Sir Feldway fulfills his. Until then, I'm sure she will wait for me. You really think so? Sylvia was fairly serious about that question. Based on what Elmesia and others told her, it was clear that Chloe's own feelings weren't geared toward Leon. He'd have to get pretty fiercely serious with her right now, or else waiting for him wouldn't even occur in her mind. But that was Leon's own problem, not one she was qualified to comment on. Whatever, she decided to advise him. Just don't come to me if she rejects you. Leon twitched a little, but nobody noticed. And just like that, the battle between him and Sylvia began. Laplace was the most powerful magic born in the moderate jesters, a demon lord in all but name and the owner of truly vicious power. Kigali had reincarnated him into the body of a walking dead, but his experience and skills as a former hero were all intact. In addition, he possessed two unique skills. The first was falsifier, which interfered with an opponent's perception, quite useful for launching a broad variety of attack. He could also freely disguise his weapons, making the lance in his hand look like a dagger in his enemy's eyes, or make himself seem unarmed, only to throw a knife from out of thin air. That, or make a grenade look like a knife. It was a great way to toy with his enemies. With this power, too, it was easy to fake his own death to make good his escape. That skill was devious enough by itself, but it had a partner. The clairvoyant unique skill Future Sight, Laplace's ace in the hole. With this, he could see several seconds into the future at any time, and that meant he always knew whether falsifier would work against his foe or not. He had immaculate physical abilities, a keen sense for battle, and the ability to predict the future and fight any way he wanted. It made Laplace invincible, and while he called himself vice president of the moderate jesters, he easily outclassed President Kigali in pure strength. Thanks to all of that, Laplace had enjoyed a long, unbeaten streak ever since becoming magic-born. With fleeing being such an important tactical tool up his sleeve, he almost never actually admitted to losing against anyone. The only exception he made was when he talked about Yuki Kagurazaka, the boy in front of him. But that was all in the past. Footman, Tier, support Leon, and while you're at it, give that man the death he so richly deserves already. Kigali's order was the signal he needed. Realizing he had no chance if he kept running, Laplace went on the counterattack. He had two opponents, both as strong or stronger than him. Really, the boss is probably the more dangerous one, huh? 'Cause at the end of the day, Lady Kigali really ain't too good at close-range combat, so Laplace had known her for a very long time. He was well aware of her strengths and weaknesses, and even though she was far beyond what she was back in the Kazalim days, he thought she could handle her up close. Kigali had gained stamina, making her harder to beat. She had more power, more destructive force, a huge upgrade in speed, but even with all of that, her overall skill in battle hadn't changed. If he could speed up his reflexes and read her well enough, it was possible enough to handle her. But even Laplace didn't like his chances against Yuki. His strength looked to be around the same as before, but making assumptions about that was dangerous. Thus, Laplace decided that instead of actively engaging Kigali, he was better off keeping a wary eye on Yuki. "Don't hate me for this, Yuki," he shouted as he threw an array of knives at him. But Future Sight told him they would all miss. So, without panicking, he made his next move, tossing more knives in the direction Yuki would dodge. He didn't forget to keep Kigali in check either. He might have been easy-going about it on the surface, but he was desperately working two unique skills at once to stay alive. But not even that could touch Yuki. Oh, no way! Even with future sense, all I'm seeing is my attacks missing him. Seeing just a few seconds ahead meant little against him. Falsifier didn't even work on Yuki anyway. He thought before that he couldn't beat him, and this time, too, victory seemed like a long shot. But, well, not like I'll give up because of that. If he was going to admit defeat that easily, he wouldn't have gone to such a lethal fight in the first place. That and Laplace always pinned a lot of his dreams on what Yuki told him. Boss, you said it yourself. You said you were gonna conquer the world. Why are you so dumb, Laplace? You still believe in all that nonsense? Of course I do. I'm tenacious that way. I ain't gonna give up on nothing till I die. So as long as I'm living, I'll keep on believing, ya boss. Laplace's shouting almost seemed desperate. Yuki laughed mockingly at it. That's beyond comical, Laplace. Just because you're a clown doesn't mean you gotta try to earn a laugh at all costs, man. Yuki pressed in on Laplace, talking down to him the whole time. With the two of them close together, Kigali put her ruined scepter down before firing another death ray with it. But Laplace had no time to pay attention to it, feverishly parrying all of Yuki's attacks. All that power behind his fists. Is this guy really human? I swear, otherworlders really do come in all shapes and sizes, don't they? But still, something bothered him. At first glance, Yuki was as fierce as ever on the attack, but in fact his aim always seemed to be a little off. It wasn't anything Laplace did, it was all Yuki's own free will. Wait a second. This signal, maybe it's... Whenever he parried a punch or stopped a kick, there was a faint vibration from the blow. Now he was recognizing the pattern. It was something he used to contact Clayman as well, encrypted so nobody else could decipher it. Only trusted associates knew the code. So... Let's see, hurry up and notice, idiot! When you do, play along with me. Wow, really? Laplace wasn't so sure at first, but there was almost no chance this was a trap. Yuki wouldn't need to go through the trouble of setting it. Laplace was going to lose anyway. So, as he was told, he turned this into a sparring session with Yuki. If you want power, I got a ton more than you. Let's see about that. They went into a grapple, and in an instant he was sent flying. So it's real? It wasn't a trap. That throw contained his next message. Laplace deciphered it while he pretended to roll around on the floor, except without the pretend part since it hurt really bad. They had latched onto each other for a short time rather than making momentary contact with their fists or feet, so Yuki gave him a decent amount of information this time. Now his current situation was clear to Laplace. Boss, you've come to your senses. It was wonderful news, given this desperate situation. Laplace smiled joyfully under his mask as he kept reading the message. So keep pretending to fight as you restrain the president, and I'll take care of the rest? The boss must have some kind of plan, then. All right. Let's do it! Without a moment's hesitation, Laplace sprang into action, pretending to go on the offensive anew with Yuki, but instead he gripped Kigali in a tight embrace. Okay, skill, steel. What are you? Kigali fell limply to her knees. Laplace held her up. You okay, President? Laplace. What happened to? Wait, my skill Melchizedek. It's gone. Kigali looked confused, but in another instant she realized what happened. Tear, footman, get back here. She deserved praise for shouting that to protect herself. Not even Kigali could hide her surprise at what happened, but even so, from the depths of her heart, she knew that this battle had suddenly taken a major turn. Sylvia, facing off against Leon, was struggling. He might have been her student, but even she had to recognize his talents. He'd always been as good with a sword as Sylvia was, even back when he took in that light elemental and became active as a hero. But with the ultimate skill Metatron, Lord of Purity, he was both a world-class demon lord and a peerless swordsman. Leon, fighting for keeps now, delivered a string of light-speed slashes. They didn't really reach the speed of light, but his sword left streaks of light in the air, hence the name. The ultimate skill Metatron made these slashes into purely murderous strikes, the greatest power accessible via the holy attribute. This skill gave Leon control over disintegration, the most powerful holy magic. With Metatron, he could deploy the spiritual particles in his body and around his sword, turning him into a living icon of destruction that could dismantle anything he touched. The combination of ultra-fast swordsmanship and the power of absolute destruction made Leon truly undefeatable. But Sylvia wouldn't go down without a fight. Indra, her own ultimate skill, gave her rule over lightning, the most powerful of natural forces. The lightning strikes it summoned were strong in their own right, but the true essence of Indra lay elsewhere. Sylvia could transform her own body into a thunderbolt, allowing her to attack at divine speed. It was why she was feared as the Thunder Empress long ago, and why she could still hold her own against Leon's onslaught. Deftly maneuvering and transforming her Vajra, she unleashed a constant flow of blade strike. It let her save face as Leon's master, but inwardly she felt an impending crisis ahead. I knew he was strong, but he's grown this much? I'm glad to see how much my pupil has advanced, but maybe not like this. That's how she really felt. And the origins of this impending sense of doom stemmed from the fact that Leon still wasn't fighting all out. It was Sylvia's position as Leon's instructor that let her know his weakness. Leon was simply too soft. If an ally was nearby, he couldn't break out his full force. Kindness like that is a virtue, yes, but in battle all it did was leave him open. Perhaps gaining strength out of his desire to protect was a good ideal for a hero to uphold, but in real life all it did was make him seem inexperienced. And Sylvia knew it all. She knew about the orphans he picked up, the oppressed magic born that he'd gathered to create this city with. Elmicia gave him financial support, but it was Sylvia who helped him build this nation behind the scenes. He was often misunderstood, thanks to the evil persona he laid out in his words and deeds, but she knew Leon was actually a very kind man. When a girl named Shizu went out of control, costing the life of her friend, he cursed himself and called it his fault. He left her in the care of the hero of that era, reasoning that it'd be better to live in a human world rather than be raised by a demon lord like himself. Sylvia knew he was watching over that girl, and thanks to that, he became aware of the future demon Lord Rimuru before anyone else. It was a coincidence that Hélène and her friends became acquainted with that girl, Shizue Izawa. But Sylvia was also using Elmesia's troops to strengthen her surveillance beyond Leon's. That's why she found all the overlapping misunderstandings that resulted to be so frustrating. Her pupil, Leon, could be so weak-willed at times, which drove her crazy, but she didn't meddle in his affairs more than necessary. So time passed, her watching over him and feeling frustrated. And now here he was, finally relying upon her. She had swung on in to answer that call, but the situation he found was exceedingly bad for everybody. That was thanks to one clear and present reason. Leon's weakness was gone. He had always gone soft, never fighting for keeps, but now that Michael came first in his mind, he might make full use of his skill for a change. Metatron, Lord of Purity, a truly fearsome gift. He had control over it, always using minimal power whenever he called upon it. But Metatron was a skill best suited for large-scale annihilation. Indra was the same way, which only added to Sylvia's alarm. If Leon ever tapped fully into it? What if Leon stopped caring about the fallout and just activated his full, skill-driven powers? If he ever got that serious, this country would be wiped off the map. So Sylvia steeled her resolve. No matter how this turned out, she had to stop him. The battle seesawed back and forth, a furious exchange of sword clashes that seemed to last forever. The aftermath of this hyperspeed battle had already devastated the audience chamber, and worse still, the transport magic circle was destroyed. It was made of magisteel and meant to last, but one stray strike from Leon had battered it beyond repair. It was no longer usable. Not only could they not escape through it, Rimuru and his reinforcements wouldn't be able to reach here either. Sylvia rued that mistake. But Leon wasn't the sort of person who could fight while simultaneously protecting something. It couldn't have been avoided, she thought. Arlos and Claude were certainly in no shape to help her either. Ooh, what a mind-blowing battle this is, even with my eyes. I cannot tell who is winning. I know this sounds strange, but don't worry. Neither can I, Sir Claude. I thought I would be able to keep up with Sister Leon at full force, but I suppose that was wishful thinking. Yes, indeed. They didn't know who Sylvia really was, but it was clear she wasn't just someone off the street. Seeing her unimaginable force in action silenced both of them. The same was just as true for Tyr and Footman. Not looking good. Leon's a lot stronger than I thought. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, it'd be quite hard to intervene in that fight. So, what can we do then? Guess we'll just have to pick off the wimpier guys. They gave each other a high five. Then they turned toward Arlos and Claude. Yeah, they're after us now, are they? We may not prevail, but at least let us raise our swords up and show them the pride of a knight. It's suicide, though, but we have no other choice. They prepared themselves. As a proud magic knight, captain and instructor, they knew where they were fated to die now. Their lives were like a candle flickering in the wind, but then a voice rang out. Tyr, Footman, get back here. At the very last moment, Kigali regained her sanity, and Arlos and Claude were fortunate enough to escape with their lives. Feldway was torn. Something truly unbelievable was happening before his eyes right now. For tens of thousands of years there had been no hitches in his plan. Lately, however, it felt like everything was coming apart at the seams. It all began with Corner's failures, the unthinkable act of losing an entire army. The underworld gate to the world in question had been shut off, making any further investigation impossible. Then the next shock, Velgrin's return. She had been banished far off into another world, where she was doomed to wait for her final destruction. But here she was, back in the key world somehow, and completely destroying Quant. There was no way any of this could happen, but that was the reality he had to face. So, this time, he dove deep into his planning, preparing for any possible contingency. And now look. Not only did Yuuki regain his freedom despite having a total lock on his brain, Kigali, who received an angelic skill from him, had gotten her wits back as well. What did you do? How did you ever escape Regalia Dominion? Feldway's voice sounded like it came from a deep pit of hell. He didn't expect an answer, but this was Yuki after all. With a detestable little grin, he spoke up. Oh, the reason's simple. I'm a genius, so I realized that this Regalia Dominion stuff was pretty bad news. Then I just substituted in this weird kind of will that was growing inside of me. Will, you say? Yeah, maybe it's my ultimate skill, Mammon, Lord of Greed, acquiring its own sentience or something. I originally took that greed-based skill from Maribel, after all, and I never did trust her. She was always kinda creepy, you know? Yuki might have become something of an expert at using Mammon, but that didn't mean he trusted it. That cautious streak was a lot of what made Yuki himself. It was real tough, too, he continued. I had to observe how this sentient Mammon was acting under your guy's rule and figure out how all of it worked. It took a lot longer than I expected, but it looks like I got it together at the worst possible timing, huh? I mean, give me a break. He winked at Laplace and the others as he spoke. This whole thing had been one big strategy. Even while being controlled, he was constantly observing the situation around him. The conclusion he came to, he had no way to beat Feldway. That'd be a different story at a future time, though. If he kept on accumulating strength, he knew he'd be able to compete with him someday. He wasn't as fast as Rimuru, but his own growth rate was just that extraordinary. So, for now, he was fanning the flames. If he could make Feldway's side think they had a clear advantage and make them retreat, the day would be won. In the worst case, he at least wanted to buy some time so Rimuru could come to their aid. Just continuing this conversation would contribute to that cause. This attitude of Yuki's infuriated Feldway, but he still kept calm. He thought over Yuki's words, seeing for himself that he wasn't lying. So he discovered how Sir Michael's skills work. How could some mere human do that? He's dangerous. Too dangerous. He narrowed his eyes, seeing Yuki as the enemy he was, and then he decided to reveal one of his hidden cards. I wanted to keep this under wraps until the last minute, but so be it. Better to simply eliminate Yuki here, rather than waste time examining this traitor's moves. Feldway saw Yuki as a clear and present danger. Not because of Yuki's agitation, though. He could not allow skill steal, a feature of Mammon, to go unchecked any longer. If he did, Yuki could free not only Leon but everybody else here from Michael's control. With ultimate dominion now invoked, any trusting relationship they might once had was as good as lost. So no matter how improbable this scenario was, Feldway decided the risk was too unacceptable. Way to go, Sir Yuki. Yeah, thanks. No wonder you're the boss, huh? It takes a lot more than that to keep you down. Hey, don't be shy, guys. Keep the praise coming. Ho, ho, ho. I'm not at all sure what happened, but now I'm sure we have the upper hand. I don't know about that, but yeah, at least we've got some leeway to work with, maybe. Feldway glared reproachfully at them as they jabbered on. Hold it, you. Let me ask, can you take Leon's ability too? Sylvia shouted. She and Leon had continued their sword fight, regardless of what was happening around them. Now they jumped a distance away from each other, taking a short pause, and that was the moment Sylvia took to ask the question. She hadn't even bothered to introduce herself to Yuiki, but he still gave her a friendly smile. Afraid not, sadly. Not now, anyway. I don't really have the capacity for it. Bah! Too bad. Well, you guys take care of your own business, but don't expect any help from me, okay? Roger that, and try to figure something out with Leon for us, if you could. I hear you. Time to show him what his master can really do. So Sylvia and Leon went right back at it. It gladdened Yuki to see as he focused himself fully upon Feldway. His statement just now, that he couldn't snatch Leon's ability from him, was true. He had just taken Melchizedek, Lord of Dominion, from Kigali, and there was no way he could take another one before he finished analyzing the first. The thing that mattered here was whether the skill had been created by the owner or granted by someone else. Kigali's skill was in the latter camp, making it unstable and more easily taken away. If the skill was more firmly rooted within the body, Yuiki likely couldn't take it even if he was in perfect condition. And for that matter, skill steal didn't work against those superior to him. Given the way Leon was, being mind-controlled and all, there was a non-zero possibility, but either way, it wasn't happening right this minute, and wasting time explaining why would just put him at a disadvantage. That's why Yuki got all vague at the end. I'm sure, he thought, the enemy will doubt me anyway. He knew he'd never trust the enemy either. If he said, I can't do it, Feldway would interpret it as there's a chance he'll take our skills and act accordingly. That was how Yuiki worked. He tried to exaggerate himself as much as possible. Right now, the enemy wasn't going to make any sudden moves, and if this stalemate could continue for long enough, they'd have a tactical victory before long. But now it was Feldway laughing. Boy. Oh, boy. I really do need to finish you all off here, don't I? The voice made Yuki shudder, and when he heard it, he realized that his plan was already off track. Did I stir him up too much? No, even if he went all out right here, we'd be able to withstand him, I think. Yuki V's. Feldway would end badly for the former. But now they were 5 against 1. Sylvia was holding Leon back, so that had let everybody else descend upon Feldway at once. This, however, turned out to be a great miscalculation, because now Feldway's final card was rearing its ugly head in a way Yuki could never have imagined. Jahil awakened. "Kill this brat!" The order came from Feldway. Yuki didn't understand what he meant. Leon was too busy with Sylvia to comply with the order anyway. If anyone was going to do it, it'd have to be Feldway himself. What kind of? But before Yuki could figure out the answer, it plopped upon him. "You called for me, Feldway? I owe you a debt, yes, but I very much resent being treated like your every wish is my command." The voice reached Yuki's ears after the searing pain battered his chest. He spat up blood, looking down at his torso, only to find a gruesome-looking hand emerge from it. "Footman, what are you doing?" Footman turned around at Kagali's screaming, pulling his arm out from Yuki's chest. "Silence, Kazalim," he answered with a laugh. "What have you done? Abandoning the name and appearance I gave you?" He spoke with a fluency that didn't sound like Footman at all, his evil aura greater and more horrifying than ever before. "Ah, shit." Yuki fell to his knees. As a saint, he was a spiritual life form and thus had complete control over his physical body. He could stop his bleeding any time he wanted even. But this was no scratch he just incurred. A normal person would have died instantly from it. "Oh, still alive. You're a tough little piece of trash, huh? Stop causing me so much trouble." The moment he stopped talking, he reared back and kicked the nearly dead Yuki into the air. With his newfound and destructive force, Footman's single strike had the power to instantly knock Yuki out. Sir Yuki." Kagali and Tia rushed over to help him, while Laplace put himself in front of Footman. "Who are you, huh? Who am I, you ask? What kind of lowly garbage are you if you don't even know the sorcerer's dentist when you see him?" This wasn't Footman at all. It was the king who perished from this world long ago, the Emperor Jahil. "Sorceress? Wait, are you Jahil?" Sylvia kept a broad watch, analyzing the situation while keeping her focus on Leon. She was listening in on this, of course, and the term sorceress dynast rang a bell. "Oh, you must be Sylvia, then." "Well, you're right. I am the great Jahil." The entire chamber tensed up. The blood drained from Kagali's face as Sylvia resentfully scowled. Kagali was his daughter, of course, but Sylvia knew Jahil as well, both having been high disciples of Twilight. They both disliked each other enough to part company and never speak to each other again, though they still appreciated each other's skills enough to be on a constant lookout. Both of them knew how evil Jahil was, and both understood that his resurrection would be the worst of all catastrophe. And that's exactly what Feldway's trump card was. Jahil had been found in his lands, after Milim laid waste to them, a mere soul wandering around without a body. He couldn't have escaped his ultimate fate if he stayed that way, but instead he was brought into custody and put in a long, long sleep. While Lieutenant Kondo was busy controlling the demon Lord Clayman, Feldway was planting Jahil's soul inside Footman. A clown like this, with his weak sense of self and even weaker intelligence, could easily be taken over by Jahil's sheer power. Such were Feldway's thoughts, and he was right. Jahil had gradually eroded his way through Footman's soul. At first he could do little more than pass information on to Feldway, but now that Footman's body had a seraphim implanted in it, the balance of power was reversed and Jahil seized full control. After that, all that remained was to awaken at Feldway's signal. He was hoping to save that moment when it'd be the most effective, and the way he saw it, that time was now. Jahil, it's time to use the powers I've given you to their fullest and kill all of them. These tools laid before Feldway were useless, and so they needed to be destroyed. Jahil, together with his granted seraphim, had been lent Regel, Lord of Relief, the skill Michael recovered from Velgrind. He had secretly made it his own, making it into the ultimate enchantment, Agni, Lord of Blazes. I've waited ages for this day. At long last I will be able to use my powers to the fullest. Jahil let out an evil laugh. All of a sudden, Footman's enormous body was engulfed in flames, turning him into a flame overlord that destroyed everything it touched. Jahil could manipulate these flames at will, and now his vast powers were unleashed. Footman's angry jester mask shattered, melting on the ground. The face behind it was horrifying, distorted, perhaps reflecting the nature of the person inside. "Footman's mine! Give him back!" Kigali was screaming, but her pained wailing only gladdened Jahil. You were always the softest of the soft. I wish I could beat a little sense into you, but oh, what a shame. Sir Feldway has just ordered me to kill you all. Forgive me, my idiot son. With zero remorse at all, Jahil threw a fireball at Kigali. It may not have been as powerful as what Velgrin could conjure, but it was still intense. Taking that heat undefended would instantly vaporize her. Don't ignore me, damn it. Laplace attempted to fire a bolt of magic to deflect the ball of flame, but it just wasn't up to the task. It was swallowed up by the fireball, completely ineffective, and then it swelled up to engulf Kigali, then Tyr, then Yuki. But after the flames died down, a figure was standing there. Nice try. It was Yuki. Despite his mortal wound, he had managed to stand up and quell the flame with anti-skill. Oh, my flames don't work on you. I don't think it's a matter of overpowering you, no. That's trouble. Your trouble, I must admit. Jahil suddenly had the curious eyes of a scientist conducting an experiment. His mouth twisted in curious glee like he had just discovered a new toy. You okay, boss? Laplace asked. As if, said Yuki. I want to lie down in bed as soon as I can. But I don't think this enemy's gonna let me go, and that's a problem. Yeah, so now what? The important thing is that we all survive. Yuki understood that, but he couldn't think of any way to accomplish it. Based on his observations, Jahil had at least 10 times the power of Laplace, and easily 5 times his own. To provide an omniscient narrator's point of view, Laplace's existence points were just over 1 million. That was incomparably more powerful than a demon lord's seed, but it had put him way at the bottom of awakened demon lords. It was the experience he accrued over many years, making the most of his skills, that made him such a handful in battle. Next was Yuki, still a saint, but already high enough in the hierarchy that he could attain full divinity before long. His EP was around 2 million, but he possessed both the all-powerful Mammon, Lord of Greed, and the cheat-level ability Canceller Anti-Skill, giving him fighting ability numerical stats couldn't measure. Tyr's EP was 4 million, which outclassed Yuki's. She had few sentient desires of her own, but one key possession of hers was the unique skill-born optimist. It tripled all her physical abilities under certain conditions, but was still largely unproven and probably worked only against foes ranked lower than her. She didn't have the battle skill of someone like Laplace either, making her the weakest out of the 4. Finally, the member of this quartet with the highest EP was Kigali. It was just under 3 million, putting her decently above the others. Her Ruin Scepter gave her a bonus as well, bringing it past 4 million. Sadly, though, Kigali's role was support. She wasn't particularly good at either close or long-range battle. It wasn't like her gifts were going to waste, but one couldn't expect the world of her in a fight. Jahil, meanwhile, had an EP of 14 million. This was Jahil's power added on to the already powerful footman's. Even worse, not only did he fight with magic, he also had a taste for close-range, melee combat, mainly so he could torture his weaker challengers for fun. A rampage from him could easily knock out all his adversaries. For those adversaries, it was the worst possible situation to face. Yuki may have been a genius, but not even he could come up with a way through this. It frustrated him. He wondered if he should have waited a little while before revealing he was sane and free of anyone's control, but quickly dismissed the idea. It was a potential move to make, yes, but the moment he picked to get Kigali back was probably the best chance he'd ever get. It's just that Feldway was one step ahead of them. He carefully prepared for everything, predicting every outcome and working out countermeasures, and that's what he walked in here with. Having all those hidden tricks up his sleeve certainly gave him a big advantage. Yuki had to admit it, he lost this one. He had been with Footman all this time, but never once did he think this ally of his could contain such an evil presence. It wasn't his fault for failing to spot it. Really, kudos must go out to Feldway for being that prepared in advance. It's always like this, isn't it? This world is so unfair to me. He regretted it turning out like this, but still, Yuki just found this world so absurd sometimes. For all he knew, maybe Tia had been rigged with something similar too. It made him wary of her, but again he reconsidered quickly. Doing something like that was really pointless. If Tia had any trap like that, there was no reason to keep it locked up at this point. Suddenly he recalled that slime, the most absurd thing of all about this place. Rimuru, who... I'm sure he'd never give up right now, huh? I came over to this world first, but here he is, showing up later and just doing whatever the hell he wants. And it all turns out so much more amazing than every single thing I work my ass off to produce. It just drives me crazy. He may have thought that, but it didn't displease him much. In fact, he could almost feel the laughter rising from his heart. "What you laughing about, boss?" Laplace asked. "Oh, just remembering something funny. You know, like, I think you're a real dangerous opponent to have, but I just remembered someone I'm even more scared of. It takes someone like him to brush off all my traps and act like it was no great shakes, you know?" "Yeah, mean Rimuru, huh? Yeah, he's way off the charts in pretty much every single way. Right. I hate having to depend on other people, but I'm not against taking advantage of him either. And he's going to be riding on in to help us real soon, so there's really only one thing to do." Yuki gave Laplace a wry smile. Yeah, you're right." Laplace smiled back. "We have to buy time," Kigali said, standing up. "That was our only option from the start, though. Kind of late deciding that, aren't you?" "Right," Tia shouted. "Let's get going on this." Yuki, Laplace, Kigali, and Tia lined up, facing up against Jahil in Footman's body. "We're going to get him for you, Footman." With Laplace's spirited vow as a cue, the intense battle began. Sylvia kept her eyes peeled, observing Yuki and the others as she fought Leon. They were 4 against 1, a good numerical advantage, but Jahil had the actual upper hand. Yuki was half dead. The hole in his chest was closed up, but that must have taken a lot out of him. It was lucky for him that Anti's skill was an integral part of his body. It let him block Jahil's fireball and just barely keep this battle to the death going. With Yuki as the keystone of their defense, Laplace and Ter were taking a hit and a run approach, with Kigali focused on support. That made it possible for them to keep it even with much more powerful opponents. Yuki was his name, right? If he falls, it's going to end fast. It would, and not just in the sense that they'd have no defender. Yuki's cheerful orders were setting the entire mood for the party. When he hears him speak, Laplace pushes himself beyond his limits. Tyr, on the other hand, mostly just went with the flow, going from strong to weak, depending on how things were looking. Kigali, keeping tabs on the whole party, knew the situation they were in, but even so, you need to have an effective move if you want to do anything. And they had nothing. Their strength was being slowly drained away, and the whole fight was over how long they could stall until their defeat. They were buying time. The only correct answer they could reach is just impossibly strong, Yuki groaned. My anti-skill can ignore any defensive barriers and stuff, but he's got so much pure durability we can't even deal him any damage. Yeah, he's way too far above us, Laplace agreed. If I had to guess, I don't see any dang way we can damage him. Nothing would penetrate Jahil. They knew that, and now all of them were feeling a sense of despair. But they kept it going, for just one reason. They believed that Rimuru and his team would be coming soon. Rimuru's just as amazing as El said, isn't he? He's not even here, and he's still providing so much hope. Sylvia wasn't one for prayer, but she still earnestly hoped he arrived in time. "Why are you looking over to the side, Master?" Leon asked her. "Isn't that a little rude of you?" Maybe you're right, but when two people with the same kind of abilities fight each other, whoever gets impatient first loses. She fluttered in the air, dodging Leon's continual high-speed slashes. Their skills were from the same lineage, and they even fought with the same sword style. She knew exactly what he would do. The same was also true for Leon, but Michael's mind dominance had given him orders to defeat his enemy. One side could bide their time and stretch out this battle forever. The other was tasked with winning. The difference in styles was obvious, and it was affecting the course of the battle. That, and there was another factor at play, Leon's unconscious mind. Subconsciously, Leon was still struggling to regain his free will. That might be just a minor influence on him for now, but it was definitely slowing his body down. So the battle between them both was proceeding at a very stable pace, with Sylvia enjoying an advantage. But then, Sylvia thought, why isn't Feldway moving at all? If he joined in, even I'd be in a little bit of trouble, you know? It also wrecked the balance Yuki's party had going, dooming them. So why wasn't he doing anything? Sylvia looked toward Feldway, hoping to find out. Observing him, she began to construct a theory. He doesn't seem the least bit concerned. Leon and Jahil are probably sacrificial pawns to him. He just wants to record some data on us so he can finish us off for good next time. It wasn't a very welcome answer. Sylvia was getting fed up with him. Feldway was being almost ridiculously cautious. Normally, he must think defeating his enemies here would make the outcome far more certain. But he wasn't aiming to do that because he must value his own safety first. And based on that, it seemed certain that Leon and Jahil still weren't the end of Feldway's secret tricks. He was the type of man to act based on his observations, and this time his observations no doubt told him the enemy could be annihilated with the forces he didn't bring this time. He was avoiding any bold moves lest the enemy have some sort of hidden card to play as well. It was caution to the point of cowardice, almost, but that was the essence of Feldway. At any rate, Feldway's lack of activity played into their goal of stalling for time. Sylvia gained a little confidence from the thought, and then it happened. "Oh, right, I just remembered," Jahil said. "That anti-skill is a trait the dragon princess's pet once possessed, isn't it? Something that could cancel out skills and magic. Quite a pain it was, but there was an easy way to deal with it. Just drop the magic, drop the skills, and come in with pure power, and it won't cancel out anything." Jahil was evil, but he was also a first-rate researcher. As a disciple of Twilight, he had a proven track record in this, thanks to his keen observational skill. That's how he came upon the right answer. Anti-skill was passed on to the Chaos Dragon, the sad, final form of Mime's pet, but it was crushed by Milim and successfully sealed away. Jahil didn't know it, but Milim had already proven his theory for him. It was time for a change of tactics, straight-up violence. So he used his own body as a projectile, striking like mad at Yuki. So pathetically weak. He roared at Yuki as he landed blow upon blow on him. From there on, the battle grew much more one-sided. Yuki could just barely tap into enough martial arts to fend him off, but the difference in power was far too much to overcome. Laplace and Tia were just as roughly handled, and it wasn't long before the three of them were on the floor. Jahil Kigali activated a spell in a fit of anger, but it was blocked by the aura surrounding Jahil's body. Then his fist slammed into her stomach, the pure difference in power cruelly deciding the battle. Do you see how foolish it was to challenge me now? So, Sir Feldway, can I do away with them? The final moment of confirmation was here. Jahil probably intended to kill them from the start, but he wanted to defer to his boss first. Do as you like, Feldway simply replied. Jahil let out a wicked laugh. Kazalim, my misfortunate son, you were a good experiment for us. It is a pity, but rest assured that I'll soon have a wonderful new toy to replace the likes of you. He began to pool his power into his outstretched hands. A swirling eddy of fighting spirit condensed itself over them, transforming into enough energy to distort the very fabric of time. The air around it creaked, then burned. This was not magic, not a skill, but pure destructive power. It was more than enough to destroy Yuki and even damage Jahil himself. Sylvia, watching from the side, went pale with horror. With all this power concentrated on a single point, it'd create a destructive blast that would go beyond even nuclear magic. Anyone on the other end would wind up being obliterated without a single piece left behind. She put up a defensive barrier, sensing the danger. Leon must have reached the same conclusion, stopping his attack and stepping in to protect Feldway. Yuki attempted to use Mammon, Lord of Greed, to solidify his defense, but already he seemed nearly out of energy. The barrier put up by Kigali's unique skill schema was their last resort. Melchizedek, Lord of Dominion, might have been taken from her by Yuki, but she had possessed an ultimate at one point. While schema was merely a unique skill, it had grown to the point that it could perform as well as an ultimate, but it wasn't enough. Kigali alone couldn't overcome this dominating difference in power. That won't work at all. She just can't hold out. Sylvia could see the writing on the wall. Jahil's attack involved two different stages. The pure destructive energy he summoned would be wrapped into a strike from Agni, Lord of Blazes. Once he shot a fireball to vaporize Kigali's barrier, he had his main attack waiting for her right afterward. It was all made possible by the colossal amount of magicules Jahil possessed. He was a walking wall of energy that was hard to even conceive of, his magicule count several times that of Sylvia. It was far too late for someone like Sylvia to join in and try defending this thing. Could anyone else stop this? She looked at the four people there, frozen in place. Kigali was exhausting herself to no avail. Yuki was already out. What about the other two? Tia had no ultimate skill, so a defensive barrier from her would be a drop in the bucket. All hope was thus placed on Laplace, so Sylvia looked his way and was startled by what she saw. That face? No, it couldn't be him. Underneath Laplace's broken mask, it was there. She thought she had forgotten it long ago, but one look and all the memories came rolling back. She couldn't help but scream. Run, Thalion. But that advice came far too late. So, farewell then. Time to pulverize your soul and wipe you off the face of this planet. Yael's words signaled the end, and true to his words, it caused intense destruction. With a flash, then an explosion, Leon's castle was blown away. The massive fireball raged, spreading heat and flames across the land before flickering into nothingness. Epilogue. End of a dream. All Yuki could do was laugh in despair. Oh man, I tried my best, but this is it, huh? It had been a little over 10 years since he came to this world. He kicked it off by running into Kigali, still the demon lord Kazalim back then, and ever since he'd been constantly striving to make his dreams come true. He made friends he could truly open up to, and he had shared his joys and hardships with them. But when you grew as rapidly as he did, the scenes were bound to start showing. Someone like Rimuru, who went from success to success, was beyond exceptional. And the moment Yuki failed to notice the change in Clayman, his plans were bound to fall apart. It left him with nothing but a guilty conscience. He had a few other regrets as well, so before it was too late, he decided to accelerate his mind and send off a final thought communication to everyone in the room. Sorry, guys. I made a bad move, and now I've caused all this trouble for you. Yuki was ready to apologize now, but no one could blame him for it. You're not the only one to blame, boss. I think my failure was a much larger factor. Kigali still felt an intense amount of remorse. She never would have been in this situation if she hadn't been so obsessed with Leon. But then, she might not have met Yuki, so maybe there were a few good things about all this. Don't cry, princess, Tia haltingly said, trying to comfort her. I just remembered some stuff too. I don't know my original name, and it's a whole big jumble of feelings and memories, but I was one of your attendants. And it's all that King's fault. We were on your side, princess. So don't regret anything, okay? If I get to join you to the end of your life, I couldn't be any happier about it. Even if this was it, Tia had no regrets. Her life was long over by the time Kigali saved it, and she even gave her something to live for. Being able to die alongside her, Tia said, was all she needed to be happy. Tia, it's been a lot of fun. And Footman and Clayman really loved you too. You know, boss, I'm really grateful for you. Even as the demon Lord Kazalim, you were so reliable, so cool, I liked you a lot. But you really look the best like this, princess. Yeah, it's true. I laughed at you at first because I didn't think it suited you at all, but now it just feels right, you know. And if that's how you always look, then it's only natural, I'd say. Even Laplace earnestly agreed. So, yeah, boss, he added with a smile. Don't worry about it, okay? We all did our level best, and we ain't got no regrets. I'm sure Clayman's waiting for us, so let's have fun over there, huh? They had done everything they could. Between the good and the bad lay the moderate, and they had walked down that exact road without any shame. It made Laplace proud of both himself and his friends. Ha ha ha! You really complain to me some more, guys, Yuki insisted. It's your last chance. We don't have any complaints, Kigali told him. Right, Tia agreed. I mean, yeah, I believed in you, boss, said Laplace. If you couldn't do something, we could accept it couldn't be done. But Yuki stood firm. You're okay going with me, Laplace. I think that girl called you something else, but if you went it alone, I bet you still have time to get out of here. Sylvia had looked at him and said, Thalion. Right, he thought at the time. Yeah, my name was Thalion, wasn't it? It was a lost memory, and now it had been recovered. He took a glance at Sylvia, relieved that his beloved wife was safe. But that's all there is to it. I'm already dead. Over 2,000 years had passed since he had come to life as Laplace. How was he supposed to come back to her like this? Besides, what mattered most to him now was Yuki and his other friends. That's why he didn't mind joking about it. Ah, it's fine. I'm Laplace. Laplace, the wonder jester, vice president of the moderate jesters. It's all in the past now, kind of thing. So you don't need to worry about me, boss. I don't. Nah. Besides, you want to leave me alone at the very end? Forget about it. Hearing this warmed Yuki's heart. It was an absurdly unfair world, but maybe life in it wasn't so bad after all. So, until the very last moment, he decided to resist with all he could. Poff! You're all such a bunch of idiots. Not that I mind. I don't need you telling me that, boss. I'll say, added Kigali, you're really smart, Sir Yuki, but sometimes you do the dumbest thing. Just like now, too. Ha ha ha. Yeah, but it's kind of fun to join forces with everyone right at the end, isn't it? Faced with the unfathomable threat of Jahil, Yuki's team was united at heart. As long as their friends were there, they could even make hell a fun experience. There was no fear among them. So, farewell then, Jahel declared. Time to pulverize your soul and wipe you off the face of this planet. Even after Jahil gave him that death sentence, the smile didn't leave Yuki's face. And right after that, the flash turned it all into nothing. The time for playing was over, and with it, the ambition of Yuki and his friends came to an end. Afterword, great to see you all again. With the anime now running, we might have some brand new fans reading this. If so, that'd be such a thrill. So this series is now at volume 18. We're plunging into the final story arc as planned, and I'm starting to think that wrapping it up in 3 volumes is going to be a lot difficult. The idea was to have a little trilogy here, with 1 volume setting up the hook, 1 having the climax, and 1 providing the resolution. But looking at the content of this volume, we're nowhere near a climax yet, huh? It's not like this is anyone's fault. I told them in advance that I might change stuff around depending on how I was feeling. But even excuses like that are starting to get a bit strained. Ah, well. Anyway, just be glad we got the war started this volume. I don't want to go too deep into the content of this volume for spoiler reasons, but if you completed it, you now know how Kigali's backstory turned out. That changed quite a bit from my original image, but I just couldn't help how cute she looked as an elf. I mean, really, I was picturing someone of murky gender from the start, but the moment I saw that design for her, everything was set in stone. It reminded me anew of just how powerful the right illustration can be. By the way, I know this setting differs ever so slightly from what's listed in Slime Volume 13. 5. The official data book released in 2019. But you know, if you can just accept it as something that kind of always happens, I'd appreciate it. I don't know when I'll break my habit of never nailing down backstory stuff unless I'm pressed by an urgent need to. Really got to be careful about that next time, but kind of late to be regretting that here during the final story arc. Anyway, that's how Volume 18 turned out. What did you think of it? I wrote this in hopes it'd please my readers, so if you enjoyed it, nothing could make me happier. Assuming you did, I hope you'll continue backing That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, because those are the voices that keep me going as I work to expand the slime world. See you all later. Thank you for buying this ebook published by Yen On. To get news about the latest manga, graphic novels, and light novels from Yen Press, along with special offers and exclusive content, sign up for the Yen Press newsletter. Sign up or visit us at yenpress.com. Book link, contents, cover, insert title page. Copyright, prologue, The Clandestine Meeting. Chapter 1. The Walpurgis Council. Interlude, Heavenly Emperor and Ex-Hero. Chapter 2. Brief Normalcy. Chapter 3. The Clowns Reminisce. Chapter 4. Aspirations Shattered. Epilogue. End of a Dream. Afterword. Yen Newsletter. Navigation. Begin reading. Table of Content.